Hi, I'm Kev. I'm or was a freelance uh, reporter for one of the local rags. I'm here in what could be sunny Dover if everything wasn't closed curtains and stuff. Down in southeast England, up there is the castle. There's a Napoleonic fort over there, and 10-minute walk directly in front of me is the beach. I live here now. I've been here about 20 years, but I grew up in a small town 8 miles north along the coast from here, a small seaside town of Deal. It's pretty much the back end of nowhere. Was quite entertaining in some ways growing up there. It's frequented a lot by people who want to hide, like TV, film personalities, celebrities, people with money, people who want to avoid other people. Anyway, the town has a lot of history, mostly amongst smuggling and some very strange residents that have inhabited that place over the years. So during the early 90s to about the mid 90s, I was a freelance to the local rag, as I said, newspaper, and I would be interested in some of the more interesting and unusual stories that I could pick up. My notoriety seemed to have escaped the town, and I was approached by an organization. I'm going to assume it's possibly a government department. They were very secretive, and they wanted me to feed them as many of these strange stories as possible. I only knew them as the firm, and I only ever spoke to them on the phone, apart from one instance. And that's the story I'm going to relate to you now. I think from the mid 90s, it's probably okay enough to talk about this one. This one's occurred in December, late November, December of 1995. And it concerns the story of the family and youngster of Jimmy Peterson. Jimmy Peterson, I first heard about in the local newspaper. It was an article not by me, but by one of the staff reporters. It was late November, and Jimmy was on his way home from Scouts, and the article shows him standing with a large, I'll put my medicinal brandy down, a large, thick, the word, not grass snake, slow worm. That's the one. That's the creature. Quite thick. Now, it's a black and white photo, so hard to tell much about it. But he spotted it on the way home on the corner of Rectory Road where it meets St. Richard's Road. Now, at that time and at that road, up until probably the late 90s, St. Richard's Road was the sort of dividing, the border between town on one side and complete countryside the other side. It was pretty windswept because Deal was on sort of a ridge and then it goes down to the sea, and it's on the edge of the seaside. So this road was exposed and quite lonely in places before I started building more houses near it. And at this junction, there's a nice big street lamp that joins onto the road. And, I used to pass it a lot when I was younger, and it was always a nice something to look out for. Well, he found it on the floor underneath this lamppost on his way home back to Wilson Avenue. That's just a little bit up round the corner from Rectory Road off of St. Richard's. It was quite a find, and the article shows him quite happy, showing off his little discovery. And that was the last I heard for a while. The following week, it was just a back column in the paper, nothing. It wasn't front page news. I know Deal was a bit dull at times, but it was not front page news. But anyway, nothing majorly exciting for me to show any interest in. Until the following week, there was another article concerning the Peterson family again. It was missing persons. The whole family had disappeared, reported by one of their neighbors. Okay, that is a little unusual. But again, it was getting on to the Christmas period and people start going on holidays and disappearing anyway from weeks at friends and stuff. So forgot about that. Following week, a repeat of the same article asking for help, locate the family. They've not been seen for 2 weeks now. Okay, that is very odd. Perhaps they are missing, but the whole family, it's starting to catch my attention. Another week, the family is mentioned again, but this time it's about the house. Police were called by neighbours concerned of possibly squatters or rowdy kids messing around, possibly abandoned house. It had been in the news for a couple of weeks that the house was not occupied, and it getting into the holiday season, lots of parties and stuff going on. So kids wanting to get a little bit of excitement. And this is Wilson Avenue. It's a an ex-mining community estate, quite densely packed, very busy, lots of people all the time. So an empty house would be noticed. So the police were called because there was what possibly was a party going on, lots of flashing lights and noise. Police turn up, nothing. They think it's just kids messing around and they disappeared. And then there's this throwaway line because they interviewed one of the other neighbors. Again, not me, one of the other staff reporters. And apparently, this kind of light show was seen just before the Petersons disappeared. Now, again, we're getting to it. Okay, it's late November then, so not quite a party time, but still not unusual. Now that did appeal to me, so I thought, okay, let's have a little closer look. So, grabbing my reporter's gear, I head on down to the road and have a little nose. It's not hard to find the house. It was well photographed in the article. And start knocking on doors. I get quite a mixed result. Some just saying, well, they've disappeared. We know that. Some saying, well, perhaps these flashing lights before were parties, kids do these things. Yeah, okay, we've already worked that one out. Some got a little bit more sarcasm involved here. I think one was saying, well, perhaps they, with their little Jimmy's little bit of news coverage and a good find, perhaps got them into a new celebrity lifestyle. Like, yeah, come on. They're not going to be on the front of magazines now, are they? And perhaps they were off partying somewhere, thinking, oh, yeah, okay, whatever, dream on. Even more sarcastic kind of response was perhaps it's actually they faked their disappearance to get more coverage. Thinking, okay. So with lots of nonsensical kind of dead end comments, I decide to actually talk to their direct neighbor who reported them, because the Petersons lived on the end of a terrace block, so they only have the one neighbor. So it took a while to get a response from the door. And when they did answer, they were quite reluctant to talk. Perhaps they've had grief from other reporters and neighbors and so on, or they didn't get on with them. I found out quite quickly what this was about. They talked in hushed tones, frequently throwing glances to the empty house next door. They were very anxious about something. I asked them about this police report. They said, no, that was not kids. They're absolutely certain. And they know that because they heard and saw the same things 2 or 3 days before the Petersons were last seen. Oh, I ask, what can you describe these things? They clam up a little bit, but with a bit more coaxing, I eventually get a response. The lights weren't disco-y lights like what everybody's saying, they tell me. More sort of rotating color spectrum kind of stuff. Okay, still party lights, probably disco lights. No. They say, no, this was unusual. They'd not seen party lights. They've done, they didn't feel it was party lights, but it was the noise. The noise is what really got to them. And I see them really get quite anxious. But I press them, what's the noise? Well, the noises they could only describe. Again, the noises started to occur a couple of days before they went missing. Sounds of an animal in pain or hungry. Now, they knew they didn't have any pets, so they're not sure what this noise was coming from, but it was definitely animal. So then there was quiet after they disappeared until more recently, when the noises began again, which prompted them to call the police. And the police couldn't find anything. That was odd, very odd, even for the local area. I not heard any kind of description, and I couldn't place what this could be. I asked them for anything else. They said, well, yeah, the reason they don't think it was disco lights or anything, because the Petersons never really were a sort of party kind of people. They were very quiet. So any noises is out of character, and any weird lights shows are totally out of character. Well, I continued to press them for anything else they could tell me, but they really sort of clammed up from that point. So I decided to just call it a day. I'd written everything down and I went home. Now, having my evening meal, I pondered all of these crazy ideas, and in particular, the neighbors' comments. Now, I then decided something really stupid. I thought it would be a good idea to pay the house a visit. Yeah. Now, I'd have to obviously do this at night because now everybody has seen me in the street. They'll spot me if they saw me snooping and they'll be able to ID me. So I would have to go in at night, maybe creep round the back. This being the end terrace, the garden was easily accessible from without being seen. And yeah, okay, I know I've seen all of those kind of horror films before. Going to a dark house when something nasty is possibly there or has happened. Yeah, but I needed to know something. So, grabbing my torch after wolfing down my dinner, I returned. Wasn't too far. I work out my approach, take to the bushes, and climb over the fence into the garden. Hopefully, not making too much noise. The garden was immaculate. Now, seeing the police had the impression that it was kids having a party or anything. There was nothing in the garden to suggest there were any attempts to break in or crowds of kids just partying in the garden. The garden was immaculate. There was even a bike just lying on the grass as if they'd just gone in for the night. But the dark house was in darkness. There wasn't even any rubbish anywhere in the garden. It was spotless. So plucking up my courage, I creep towards the house. The back door and kitchen was obviously on the back. I could see the tap and the sink right opposite in the window. So I switched my torch on and shine into the kitchen. The layout was kitchen. Then there was a middle door in the middle of the wall directly opposite me, which goes into the front room. Now, the front room the curtains were open. So I was certain to keep my torch down and not shine through there and alert people to that there's somebody in the garden or in the house. To the right by the kitchen door is another doorway, which I assume must go into a hallway of some kind. So keeping my torch pointing down, I scan the kitchen. There's the table directly between the kitchen sink that's right in front of me and the door. I scan, nothing unusual, nothing disturbed. And then I catch a bit of movement. It just catches the torch light. It's something shiny. I take the torch back. Certainly gone. And then I jump. The table shakes. And looks like it's being dragged towards the sink that's in front of me through the window. I swear, because that shook me up. I wasn't expecting that. And then I almost screamed when something shot from below the kitchen edge towards the window. It was silver. It was a kind of tentacle appendage of some kind. And I am so glad it did not crack the glass, because I would have been running rapidly. I don't know why I didn't. I almost dropped the torch. It was that shocking. But it hit the window, bounced off a little bit, and then started prodding. And I was petrified for a while. I couldn't move. I'd never seen anything like this. And it was just tapping the window towards me. It had some kind of like mouth on the end. And I did not know what the hell that was. It was totally crazy. I thought, I do not want to be here. This is way, way beyond. No, I think I must have like lost speech. I could not even comprehend what it was I was seeing. So I ran. I didn't care how much noise I made climbing that fence and getting over it. I needed to be away. I'd got out of the estate and started my slow return home, just trying to process what it was I had just seen. I thought, this is one I need to report back to the firm. Certainly couldn't tell the police. Well, the fact that I was trespassing and potentially going to do a break and entry would probably be bad anyway. But the police wouldn't believe me anyway. But this would be right up the alley for the firm. They wanted weird. They're going to get weird. So I get home. I make myself a drink, much like this, and to make the call. Now, I don't often get a chance to talk to them. I sometimes send them a little bit. But this time I spoke to someone. I don't know who. They never announced who they are or what the firm's name is. They listened to my statement, made me repeat it 2 or 3 times. Then I went on hold. No idea. I was on hold for quite a while. I thought the line had gone dead. And then I hear the click and someone says, quite simply, they will send an operative to clean up the mess. I'm not entirely certain what that meant, but those words didn't really inspire confidence. Well, they didn't. It sounded like things were going to get buried. But anyway, in fact, I'm probably not that fussed about that, to be honest. I didn't want to go anywhere back near that house. They gave me a list of things I needed to obtain, and that the operative will be with me tomorrow, 4 p.m. sharp. The phone hangs up, and my mind spinning. I decided to call it a night and go to sleep. Well, I tried to go to sleep. That thing coming at me. No, I did not sleep well that night. Well, I spent the rest of the next day obtaining all these various items that the firm instructed me to do so. And I wait for the operative. Now, I was expecting some kind of ninja dude to turn up. I was quite disappointed when at 4 p.m. and it was dark by then, it being December. The door bell goes, and I open it to a 30-something guy with crew cut hair and black clothing, quite a bit an injury, but then with a camouflaged jacket on, carrying quite a large holdall, which has some interesting bits poking through in out the shape. Bring him in. Now, we were going to go out and do something. I have no idea. It was probably not going to be pretty, and I didn't really want a part of it. But, I have to do this. We need a little bit of time to kill. So I offer him a cup of tea, and he absolutely refuses a cup of tea. And I don't know about you, but if I'm going out on some nasty thing to combat some who knows what, I want a cup of tea in me. Maybe something stronger, but a cup of tea is a good start. I'll talk. I'm not even going to discuss what we talked about because there was nothing to talk about. He really didn't tell me any name, rank, nothing. Just confirmed that I had all the parts and they were all in the bag, the rucksack that I have. Yeah, I confirmed that. And after a tense hour of silence, he checks his watch and off we go. Now we take my car instead of walk, and we park a street or so away, which is a bit pointless because it would have been quicker to walk, to be honest. But he wanted kind of getaway if it was required. So I direct him to the house. We climb over and approach the back. I'm making sure he goes first. Whatever's in there can get him first, because it's not going to be me. So, standing by the back door, he uses his flashlight and just scans the inside. I wait for the sad, mad rush of this, whatever it was, to hit the window again, but nothing. I'm just hoping it was my imagination, although I know it wasn't. I was absolutely certain that was physically real. But anyway, he opens his bag. Now, what he pulls out is, well, I wouldn't say it's hard to describe. It was definitely a weapon of some kind. And if you've ever seen these sort of 1950s sci-fi where it's like a ray gun that's like gleaming metal with lots of pointy things on it, that looks totally, you're going to more probably poke your own eye out more than hurt someone else with it by shooting them. It was like that, and it broke my tense sort of feelings at that time, because I just started laughing, and he wasn't particularly impressed with my response, especially when I cracked the joke of, you're going to put a new TV aerial up, or you're going to take care of the thing. That didn't go down well, so I shut up. Well, he then pulled out a couple of other things that were for me. One, now a mobile phone. Now this was the like mid-90s. It was nice, big, chunky thing. Not massively chunky, but it was a little good handful of phone there. He told me that was to make a call to the fire brigade to get them there as soon as possible to minimize collateral damage. It's not traceable, so I can get rid of it as soon as the call's made. Okay. There's going to be collateral damage possibility, is there? He then showed me why that might be the case. And he hands me, well, I had no idea at the time. He had to actually tell me what it was, but it was a flare. He pointed out this was plan B. If he couldn't solve the problem in there, then I was to put my rucksack, which I was a bit anxious carrying, to be honest, because it was full of highly volatile liquid. I was to put that rucksack into the kitchen when he goes in, and should things go pear-shaped, I was to light the flare, lob it at this highly flammable thing, and run and phone the fire brigade. I was actually quite relieved that I wasn't going to go really in there, to be honest. he was going to do all the work. So that was good. I had plan B. I was to stay outside. Yes. So it began. He dons his ray gun with spiky bits and sticks something in the door frame and forces the door open. At that moment, I am stepping back just in case something leaks out and gets him, but nothing. Okay, so he steps in, making sure still nothing's going to grab him first before I get anywhere near that door. And he's fine. I take off my rucksack and push it in, using my foot to get it on, to push it in as far as I possibly can. It skids across the floor a little bit. And it's well within range of me lobbing this thing off before I have to run. Give a thumbs up, helpful like. Just a disdainful look from him. So armed with the gun in one hand and his flashlight, he scans the dark of the kitchen. He then quickly checks the front room, comes back and heads to this side doorway, which is in total darkness. I catch a bit of stairs as the light spins through there, and then he's in and I see the light disappear off. My ears are straining for any noise. I hear footsteps going upstairs, and I look to the floor above and I catch a little bit of light on the landing upstairs. It's only moments later, I hear some strange, really strange noises, some high-pitched whining 3 or 4 times, and then a couple of thumps. Again, a few more whining sounds and a couple of thumps. And then I hear footsteps running rapidly down the stairs. A few more whining sounds again, but coupled with that is some bright flashes of light that illuminates the hallway. Then I hear a strange animal howling. It's blood curdling. I really know why those neighbors next door looked at me in a strange way, fearful way back at this house. It sort of tweaked that sort of primeval instinct of flight or fight. I wanted to run, but I needed to hang on. I fought against all instinct to run. There was something unnatural in that sound. More of these high-pitched whines and flashes of light. Then there's some crashing on the stairs. The operative suddenly appears in the doorway. And one of these, I don't know if it's the same one, but there's this metallic, shiny tentacle around his throat and more coming over his shoulder, trying to grab hold of him. He's clinging to the door frame to stop being pulled back. He looks at me wide-eyed, absolute terror on his face. He says, "Plan B," and then suddenly he's consumed and pulled back into the darkness. I come out of my shock as tentacles are coming into the kitchen and starting to probe the rucksack that's on the floor. I suddenly fly into action, pull the pin on the flare and lob it at the rucksack and the tentacles, which suddenly pull away at this sudden addition to the environment. I don't even look to see whether it ignites. I run. I really run. I only make it just to the back garden fence when an explosion tears through the kitchen and throws me over the through and well, actually probably through the fence, to be honest. Things just go horribly wrong at that point. My ears are ringing. I can feel the heat of an explosion behind me. I'm not looking. I am completely continuing to run. I rapidly fumble for this mobile phone and dial 999 and call the fire brigade. I give the address and then throw the phone in a nearby bin as I run back to the car. I don't know how I got home. I recall fumbling for the keys, just shaking, watching plumes of smoke and fire from the estate a couple of streets away, and hearing the sounds of the fire engines from in town, not too far away. Well, the official story goes that I hear is that when the police turned up after the fire brigade had put the fire out, that there was minimal damage to the neighbour. Potentially that the police concluded and the fire brigade thought the problem was kids in the garden again broke into the house, messing around, set gas off, and that ignited, blowing through the kitchen and through the front, luckily, and not up or to the sides. So minimal damage, except to the ground floor. There was no mention of anything unusual being found, which, considering what happened there, I suspect the firm had further input to the cleanup. And that was pretty much the last I heard of the Petersons. They were never found. No one ever saw them again. But a couple of weeks later, into the new year, there was another article. Bit strange, and it gave me serious chills. A couple of streets away, a farmer reported seeing some slow worms, much like Jimmy's find, but smaller. Now they were going after his prize veg, so he torched them and burnt them to a crisp. I just hope they weren't its children and no others remain in town. Thank you. Thank you for watching, being here, or whatever. And thank you for you lot on YouTube who are probably going to catch it up later. This is a free Fringe online event. Please, if you've enjoyed it, please throw a donation to freefringe.org.uk. The Free Fringe cannot exist without donations. If you fancy throwing me a tip, then that's fine by me. All the links are in the Eventbrite blurb and on this YouTube description. So thank you for coming along. I have one more Free Fringe show to do a week on Saturday, and that is brand new. I haven't even finished writing it yet. It's going to be quite something for a first ever performance of this one, and that's the Chronicles of Kia. So hopefully you can make that. If not, book a ticket to be a reminder, and or catch it on my YouTube eventually when I've finished recording. So Thank you. Night night. Don't let the alien bugs bite.